So we did a chapter 1 review. I figured may as well go on and do a chapter 2. Except this time, spoilers. Big time spoilers. A lot of spoilers. All we're going to do is talk about pretty much everything about the whole chapter 2 and all of its juicy contents. Moist, delicious, luscious contents. So where we left off with chapter 1 was Alfie's a little confused. She doesn't know what the fuck to do, but she's really pissed at her friend. That her friend would go ahead and betray her husband and have sex with a human. That's great. But this chapter isn't about Alfie. This chapter is about her mom, Mrs. Tolman, or Vera Tolman. And with this, we see where Alfie kind of is angry at her mom. And they don't really get along too well. Because her mom's blunt, just says it as it is. And more or less, her mom's not antisocial like Alfie. She's more or less just hated by the community because of her, well, roughness. And the way she just doesn't beat around the bush. Already, though, this chapter hits us up with a little bit of humor. And this is what I was talking about, is that Alfie has literally everything in it. It's got drama, it's got humor, it's got really a lot of funny things in it. But I just love it on how the elf who we meet, whose name is Alduin, who's a nice character that I like quite a bit. Alduin gives her these schematics that have elven words written on it. And he thinks that he's just going to lie to her, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, she just goes, "Why does it say worthless man on it?" He's like fucking embarrassed. But this is a good bit of comedy that I like Incase for, is that he does do pretty damn good when it comes to his dialogues, especially when it comes to comedy. It's pretty damn good. I'm surprised that he doesn't put more of it in his art pieces, especially in Alfie. I think it could use a way more humor. But besides from that, though, what can we say about Alduin? Like, he's a weird character, right? He's rich. He's pretty weird looking. He looks really young despite how old he actually is, because he's an elf, which is that whole fantasy thing. But Alduin kind of fits the, I would say, stereotype that when you're rich, you start to become kinky. And that seems to be what I think the artist was going for, is that only rich people can really enjoy sex like this. And they kind of use money to pay people for it. It's just interesting, though, Alduin's character and the way he views things, because he's just all about sex, sex, sex. And he even says it to Miss Tolman, is that he hasn't been invigorated by a woman in a long time. So that's kind of hinting that he's had so much sex with women that he's no longer straight. He's probably more curious about men now because he's just so tired of women, which I find a very interesting piece of dialogue, especially for what comes next in the chapter. But there's a lot of interesting things here, is that he puts in some lore about what kind of currency they use, which is silver. And that's just a very interesting piece of currency. Because when it comes to Europe in medieval times, silver was kind of one of those things where it was really rare to come by. Most time it was way too hard to produce silver. So people didn't really trade in it. Because, it's hard to value something that people just don't know how to make. They have it, they just don't know how to make it, like, smeltable. So, either A, this is kind of like a Chinese type setting, or B, this is more like a medieval setting, just that peasants deal with silver instead of gold, and gold is left to the nobles. Which would beg the question is, does Alduin have any gold? Which I would love to find out later chapters. Again, this is porn. And if you're watching this video going, wow, Freezer, you think way too much into this, just know you're the one who's watching this too, so I know you're thinking just as hard as I am. Come on. Really, the last thing I want to cover is just the sex scene, because of course we got to talk about it, because if we don't talk about it, then, well, whatever. But of course, Alduin tempts Miss Tolman here into sex, but really all he's asking for is for her to jack him off, because after she puts on what he wanted her to design, which is those sex cuffs, he gets aroused. And while he is aroused, he's asking her to jack him off, and she gets a little pissed, but then he's offering to pay her 50 silver instead of 25. And to which, as I said earlier, all she can think about is, man, I want to get back at my husband. So she decides to do it, but here's where we kind of see what Alduin's kink is. He loves it when she is just degrading him. So this is some real Slanesh type shit here. Because he doesn't want to have sex where someone's like, oh, you're so big, or oh, you're so handsome. Instead, he wants to have sex with someone who's just sitting there degrading him. Just going, are you even a man? Do you want to fuck a guy? Is this what you want? Like, holy shit. And she just keeps going into him and into him and into him. And he's just like, okay. Now this kind of plays into the whole domination thing, which is, I would say a lot more realistic than what other hentais have drawn, and that's just my personal opinion. If you've looked at any other hentai stories, you'd probably realize that, yeah, this is the most realistic you'll ever get. Like, an older woman is easily tempted into sex than a younger one would be, mostly because it's been so long since they've been touched, and also self-esteem tends to go down the older you get, as a woman at least. For guys, we really don't give a shit. And of course, I just love the dialogue, because you got the guards sitting outside the tent going, should I go in there? Nah, he's fine. And the whole time, all you hear is just her screaming at him. She's just like, you don't fucking touch me, you piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. And it's so fucking great. Honestly, I actually recommend that everyone here watches Alfie, but also watches my videos, so that way I get more views. Thank you. But the last thing I really wanted to cover, though, was that I just find it interesting that Alfie doesn't talk to her friend. So her friend is trying to talk to her, trying to explain what's going on over and over again, and it's making Alfie distraught, which is like typical normal drama girl bullshit. But the thing is that's so interesting about this chapter is that they don't even show what goes on until the next chapter. So this whole time, this isn't a chapter about Alfie. This is actually a chapter about her mom. And of course, during the sex scene, her mom even says about how, like, she hasn't been touched in so long. So this also hints that Alfie's got, like, a really broken family dilemma on her hands. One interesting thing, though, that I don't think a lot of people really emphasized enough, or at least the artist in case emphasized it quite a lot, but I don't think a lot of people picked up on it, was that Miss Tolman's a leather worker, which is a very weird profession, suffice to say, because her husband fishes. He doesn't hunt, so where they're getting this leather is probably through buying it from someone else. But their craftsmanship is very well done. In later chapters, we see that Alfie's actually picked up a bit on this leather working business, and she's actually pretty good at it. The only thing is, though, is that we don't really see Alfie working because Alfie doesn't really want to work. She just wants to daydream, and really she just wants to go out and visit the world. This is something that's going to be emphasized later in a few more chapters. But as of now, all we're seeing is just little glimpses of these personalities, and they're culminating into one big swoop around chapter 5, chapter 6, we're going to see it. Still, though, I always found it fascinating, though, the way the artist Encased works, because his art is really well done, and the way he does the dialogue is really good, really powerful. Like how the workshop is not exactly well lit, so when Vera is talking to her husband, Miss Tolman's talking to her husband, it really puts in that mood that this is a somber moment. Like, these guys really try everything that they can to not talk to each other. And the dialogue is so minuscule but so powerful. It's so great. I love being spoiled with such great scenery and such dialogue where they say little to no words. In fact, if you count them, I think there's only a total of 12 words being said. And all that is mostly just scenario for you to get the idea of what's going on, which is what I find really amazing. So if you're a very emotionless person when you want to look at your porn, I wouldn't recommend this because you're not going to pick up on these subtle details. But if you are a person who likes to watch domination, and you're a person who also likes to, have a good ass story, this chapter is really good for you. Now, there isn't much in the way of penetration. This is all mostly hand and oral stuff, this chapter. But next chapter, we start to see more and more interesting sexual deeds committed. So, this is Freezer700. I am signing out. I'm going to be uploading a Warhammer lore video right after this one. So do not fret. I am still doing that. It's just that I felt like we should really discuss hentai comics and their stories because they're really well done. And the artist really does deserve credit for his work. Because I've masturbated to this a good 12 times. So this guy deserves something, if not my human child. So he definitely deserves it. Besides that, though, I hope that you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys are actually going out and reading Alfie instead of just whacking your dicks at the computer screen. So, see you guys next time.